Welcome to Mbuya Parent School and Kindergarten, situated in Kampala City with modern, well-equipped facilities plus extensive playing fields and amenities. Mbuya Parent School believes that a better future lies where children know how to find and create balances in themselves and the world around them. This explains our fusion of academic subjects and co-curricular activities. There are many opportunities presented to them to flourish both in and outside the classroom.
I want to become a president when I grow up.
I want to be a pilot.
I will be the best fashion designer.
Mbuya Parent School. The sky is our limit.
Hello, our dear candidates. I welcome you once again to our second lesson. My name is Onyai Robert, and I'm taking you through Science Lesson 2 in Primary 7. In the previous lesson, we looked at a very important topic about the body system. The body system we looked at was the excretory system, and in this very lesson, we are still continuing the same. However, in the previous lesson, I left you with an activity which I believe you ably attempted. So, before we go to the details of today's lesson, I would like us to go through last time's activity. I'm going to share the ideas I have on the activity with you. Please take very keen note and compare the responses I'm going to share with you with what you had attempted earlier on. If you passed the activity very well, nice. If there are some areas where you didn't do well, you will be required to make corrections. Thank you. So, what were the numbers that we looked at in our previous activity? 1. Our first question was saying, what is meant by the term excretion? Again, what is meant by the term excretion? Dear learners, we said that excretion is the process by which harmful waste products are removed from the body. Did you pass that? Good. So let's look at the second activity. Number 2 was saying, give a reason why the skin is called an excretory organ. So what was your response? Wonderful. The skin is called an excretory organ simply because it excretes sweat. The skin excretes sweat. That's why it is called an excretory organ. What was number 3 in our activity? The question was, in which way is sweating an important process to the human body? In which way is sweating an important process to the human body? I believe you had an answer. So what was your answer? All right. Here, we refer to sweating as a very important process in the human body because it helps to cool the body. So during the sweating, especially when the sweat is evaporating from the skin or the body experiences a cooling effect. So in simple terms, we say sweating helps to cool the body. Wonderful. What was our next question? Our next question was, name any one excretory product removed by each of the following organs. Remember, we talked about the organs that make up the excretory system. So what were these organs? 1, we looked at the lungs. So which excretory products are excreted from the body by the lungs? 1, we have carbon dioxide. And secondly, we have water that comes out in form of water vapor. Good. Apart from that, we also looked at the kidneys. They create different products like uric acid, urea, excess salts, excess water. These are the products excreted by the kidneys, and they all come out in form of urine. So if your response was urine, it's also okay. And we also looked at this question. Suggest 2 ways you can care for your skin. I believe every day you do different activities on your skin. So what are some of the ways you care for your skin? That's good. So I know you bathe daily. So that's one of the ways of caring for the skin. Secondly, you need to smear the skin with the Vaseline as another way of caring for your skin, especially after bathing. Not only that, we have different ways through which we care for the skin. That can also include keeping away sharp objects that may cause damage to our skin, and many others. Lastly, we looked at this question which was saying, how is melanin important to the human body? Remember, we talked about melanin and its importance. So what does melanin do? One, it determines the color of your skin. Apart from that, we also say that melanin protects us from strong rays coming from the sun. I shared with you the effects of this. So, if these were your responses and you got everything correct, that's wonderful. You can give yourself flowers. In case you made any errors or you failed some numbers, you need to take time and write down the corrections. Okay, let's move away from this. Today we are going to look at another part of the skin. Remember, we said the skin is divided into two main layers. In the previous lesson, we looked at one of the layers, the outermost layer, which is the epidermis and parts that make it. In this lesson, we would like to look at the second major layer of the skin, and that is the dermis. So, today we want to look at the dermis. So, the dermis, simply by description, is the inner layer of the skin. And by the end of this lesson, what could be the targets that we need to achieve? One, we need to know which parts or the area or the parts that make up the layer we are calling the dermis. Secondly, I would also like you to take keen note and learn the functions of the skin, the general functions of the skin, and other areas that we shall discuss. Please also take note of some new words, especially spellings and correct pronunciations, as will be given to you by the teacher. Thank you. So, what are the layers that make up the dermis? So, the dermis is the innermost layer of the skin, and it has several parts that make it. One of these layers, as we shall see in our diagram, there are different layers, and when we talk about the dermis, we are simply referring to this area below this, all coming down like this, makes up what we call the dermis. Whereas the upper layer is the first layer of the skin, which is called the epidermis, which we talked about earlier on. So today we are going to focus only on this. I believe you have already seen and read some of the words already naming those parts. So what are these parts that make up the dermis? One, we have what we call, we have blood vessels, known as the capillaries. We have what we call sweat glands. Dear candidates, I believe you're already identifying this diagram. We also have what we call hair follicle, the hair where the hair we have in our body grows from. We also have what we call the sebaceous gland. Candidates, note the correct pronunciation and the spellings. The word is sebaceous. Sebaceous glands. The sebaceous glands, right over there. We have what we call the sweat duct that moves, that part is indicated right here. Though it is not named, please take note, where my pointer is touching is what we call the sweat duct. So this is a narrow tube that moves out the skin. Then we have what we call the pore. A pore is a tiny hole. So our skin contains several pores. We shall know how these parts are important. Then we have what we call the erector muscles right over here. Okay. Then we have the nerves on the skin. We have the nerves, and finally we have what we call the subcutaneous fats, which is this area around here. The whole of this area is known as the subcutaneous fat, which contains the fat cells. Okay, having known the parts that make up the dermis, we are going to move on to know how each of these parts functions. So, what are the functions of these parts? One, let's look at the hair on our body. The hair on our body, we said, grows from what we call the hair follicle. So, the hair on our body, as you can see, you have hair on your head and different other parts of your body. And if you look at the second picture, there is somebody who has hair all over the legs. And this could be a very good adaptation to a certain response to temperature. So, how is the hair important? Hair simply helps to keep the body warm. This is because hair is an insulator of heat, or a bad conductor of heat. So, it helps to keep our body warm. Dear candidates, let's move on and look at other parts of the functions of the dermis. We have what we call the sweat glands. Just the way you can hear, sweat glands. So the sweat glands simply help in production of sweat. They help in production of sweat, or in other words, they absorb sweat from blood and store it before the sweat comes out of the body. Let's look at another part, that is the pores. The pores are the tiny holes I talked about. So what's the importance of these pores? When sweat is produced from the sweat glands, or absorbed and stored in the sweat glands, this sweat will move through what we call the sweat duct. This area, we are calling this tube, we are calling the duct. So when the sweat moves, it comes out of our bodies through the pores. So in simple terms, the pores let out sweat, just like you can see in this illustration. So the blue, all right. Let's look at another area that make up the dermis and its function, the capillaries, right here. So what is the importance of the capillaries? Simply to bring blood to the skin. This blood contains digested food and oxygen, which will be needed for respiration of the living cells in the skin. All right, so that is how the blood capillary functions. It brings blood carrying oxygen and digested food to the skin for the process of respiration. Have you got that? Wonderful. Let's move on and look at another part. We have what we call the sebaceous glands right over here. So what's the role of the sebaceous glands? The sebaceous glands produce an oily substance that is very good for our skin. What does this sebum, this substance do? First of all, this substance produced is known as sebum. Everybody say sebum. Would you like to know the spelling? Very good. It is S-E-B-U-M, sebum. So sebum helps to keep our skin shining. Even if you have not applied Vaseline on your skin, you may have your skin shining because of the presence of sebum. Nice. Let's also look at the nerves. The nerves are found all over our body, but most importantly, they are also attached to the skin. And how are they important? They help us to detect pain, touch, and temperature. That may include coldness or heat. So the nerves in our bodies help us to feel. Wonderful. So, having looked at the different parts of the dermis and their functions, let's go ahead and look at general functions of the skin. In the previous classes, you looked at the skin as a sense organ. So I believe answers you have in your mind right now is that the skin is a sense organ. Is that true? Right. That is very correct. So what are the functions of the skin? Quickly, let's look at the functions of the skin in general. 1, the skin excretes sweat. We have already talked a lot about this. 2, the skin stores fats. Thirdly, the skin protects us from bacterial invasion or germs from entering our bodies, and also the ultraviolet rays of the sun. Then, the skin is also a sense organ for feeling. We have already looked at that. And it also helps in making of vitamin D. But note, in making vitamin D, we can only get that from the morning sunshine. So please, my dear candidates, don't come out at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, display yourself under the sun expecting to get vitamin D. That will be very dangerous. Only during the morning sunshine. That's when your skin can manufacture vitamin D. And the skin also helps regulate body temperature. All right. So, we have looked at all these processes. The process of sweating, which is a very important process to the body. We have also looked at the storage of fats. So in this picture, you realize that these people are really fat. So why are they fat? The skin has stored some fats under it. And these fats are very important in our bodies. 1, the fats that is stored under the skin helps to keep our bodies warm by preventing or reducing heat loss, especially during cold weather. Apart from that, these fats also can be used to produce energy in the body. Right? We said the fats help to keep the body warm and also provide energy to our body. Let's also look at the prevention of the entry of germs. So what does that illustration mean? Sorry? Here we realize that the germs cannot enter through our skin. I've already told you that even coronavirus, which is the most dangerous germ right now, cannot enter through your skin unless you touch the soft parts of the body. Let's look at being a sense organ for feeling. The skin helps to pick all the senses right from our feet and all other body parts and transmit the senses to the brain for interpretation. That includes heat, cold, touch, and any other sensation. So that is what is being illustrated right there. So dear learners, another importance of the skin is that it waterproofs the body in a way that water cannot enter your body through the skin. So even if you go and swim in a swimming pool, you can only take in water through your body openings like the mouth, but not through the skin, because it's waterproof. And lastly, the skin also helps in making or manufacturing of vitamin D, as we have already seen. So let's look at the temperature regulation part of it. We said that the skin also regulates body temperature. Now when we talk of temperature, we are looking at 2 factors. 1, coldness and heat. So how does the skin regulate your body temperature or our body temperature on hot days or on cold days? So when it is hot or when it is cold, let's look at what happens when the temperature is high or when it is hot. How does the skin behave? 1, there is what we call sweating. We have already talked about sweating several times. And this only happens during hot temperatures. So that's one of the ways the skin regulates your temperature on a hot day. 2, we also have we also have what you call vasodilation. And we have the hair behaving in a manner that it falls flat on hot days. All these processes aid in the loss of excess heat from our body to keep our body cool. So, going further, we have talked about vasodilation. I believe this could be a new term. Not the pronunciation, vasodilation. We can as well spell it, vasodilation. Everybody? V-A-S-O-D-I-L-A-T-I-O-N, vasodilation. So what does it mean? This simply means the widening of the blood vessels. This widening of the blood vessels brings blood closer to the skin surface. And when blood comes closer to the skin surface, the excess heat in blood escapes through our skin. And in that way, our body remains at a constant temperature. So, the widening of the blood vessels to increase blood flow to the skin so that excess heat is lost from our body. Let's look at what happens on cold days. There is what we call shivering. Dear candidates, have you ever shivered? Good. So, shivering, in this case, you have some involuntary shaking of the body, which is not extremely violent. If it goes beyond that, then something else. So, this shivering is a very important process because it helps to generate some heat in your body, especially on cold days. What else happens on a cold day? We can develop, there's a process known as vasoconstriction. This now is the opposite of what we have looked at earlier on, vasodilation. In this case, the blood vessels narrow and withdraw blood from the skin surface such that excess heat, the heat that we have in our body is not lost. So, we also have the behavior of the hair standing upright during this kind of weather, such that a warm layer of air is trapped to provide insulation and keep the heat up in our body. So all these processes help in keeping our bodies warm. And lastly, the development of what we call goose pimples. As you can see here, right here, we have this very well illustrated. Dear candidates, have you ever experienced this? Good. When was that? Was it hot or cold? If it was during cold weather, that's perfect. That is what happens exactly when it is cold. The hair will stand upright and there will be a development of goose pimples on your skin to maintain the heat in your body. So all these processes help retain heat in our body since we are warm-blooded animals, or we maintain a constant body temperature. So, having looked at all this, I believe you have taken very good note of whatever we have discussed. So this illustration simply shows how your blood vessels behave on a cold day. Vasoconstriction. The narrowing. In this case, we look at the blood vessel having a very wide lumen. That means here is a lot. Easily be lost. But those become referring to as vasoconstriction. So those are the ways through which the skin regulates body temperature. Dear learners, as we come to the end of this lesson, I have prepared for you another activity which you will do the same way you did the first one. Please have the responses given to this activity And don't forget to submit the responses in case you have a chance of submitting some of them through our different platforms. So this is our activity for today, and I believe you have got everything to help you attend this activity of today. We have come to the end of our second lesson, and please, dear candidates, note that we are still in this era of COVID-19, and all I say is stay safe, stay home, always listen to your parents because they have the best advice for you, and always maintain or take note of the safety guidelines given against COVID-19. I thank you till we meet again. Bye-bye.